All right. Well, welcome to our short little session on how to protect your online store. Today, we're going to go over 3 simple ways that you can secure your BigCommerce store. And honestly, a lot of the little tips and tricks that we're going to go over really can be applied to the internet as a whole. So we're in for some informative content. Just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Emma Hyde. I am a product marketing manager at Rewind. I specifically work on our e-commerce product line at Rewind, which includes obviously BigCommerce. I joined the company just earlier this year, and I work closely with the BigCommerce team to make sure that we're delivering content that helps merchants with their backups. So let's dig into it. So today, we're going to have a quick little introduction to Rewind, what we do, who we are, all of that fun stuff. Then we'll get into the meat of the presentation on the 3 different ways you can protect your store. We'll have a quick live demo and time for a Q&A session at the end. So what is Rewind? Rewind, in a nutshell, is a fully automated backup and restore app for your BigCommerce store. We're a tool that protects your BigCommerce store is what that means, basically. We automatically back up all of the essential data in a BigCommerce store, and we make it easy to restore that information in minutes. We are the leading backup app for Shopify, BigCommerce, QuickBooks Online, and GitHub. We recently launched Trello as well, so we're adding new platforms every single day. Well, I guess not every single day, but as much as possible to make sure that your data is always protected. We were founded in 2015, and we are based out of Canada's capital city, Ottawa, with employees spread out across the country. We have over 1,300 reviews, 5-star reviews across all of our platforms. We work with global brands around the world to power their backups and make sure that their data is secure. We have more than 1,000, like I said, more than 1,000 5-star reviews, which includes tools like QuickBooks, GitHub, and like I said, most recently, Trello, the productivity and organization tool. Our mission as a company is really to back up and protect all cloud data for every small, medium, and large business. So as I said earlier, we are constantly working to add to our suite of tools that we back up so that no matter where you're storing your data, no matter what cloud platform you're working on, we have your back. So before we dive into things, I wanted to get a feel for where we're starting from, and I just wanted to run a little poll here to understand what your #1 data security concern is. So I will give you all a minute to answer this one. It's always interesting to see what people think of when they consider data security and understand what that means for their business and to them specifically. So very interested to see what you guys feel. Awesome. So looks like it's a pretty split group. Looks like there's an even tie 50-50 between data loss and unauthorized access. So that's perfect because we're going to talk about both of those things throughout today's presentation. So let's get into the meat of it, what we're all here for, the 3 simple ways that you can protect your store. So the first one that feels obvious is passwords and 2FA. By now, you really honestly can't exist in the digital world without coming into some kind of contact on tips with password security, but not all of us are familiar with 2-factor authentication. So let's dig into that. What is 2-factor authentication? 2-factor authentication helps ensure that you're protected by adding a second layer of security to your online data. Your password is something you know, whereas your 2FA is something that you have. So oftentimes with password security, because your password is just something you know, it can be guessed or stolen. But when you have that second code for the 2FA, the combination of the two together is what really helps to keep your data secure. So I like to think of it like a security system. Even if somebody has the key to your store, they still need the code in order to disable the security system and avoid being caught. So why do you need it? Well, in a nutshell, passwords are compromised every day. Just a few weeks ago, Facebook and LinkedIn were part of yet another data scraping exercise. It was in the news. And that sounds scary, but because it happens all the time, all of these companies are also working to make sure that the data that is scraped or hacked into is constantly being protected and updated. And so sometimes you'll get a push from your different tools to update your password or change one thing or another. If you're interested in finding out whether or not your passwords or email address have been compromised in some kind of data breach, there are sites like Have I Been Pwned that will search for your email or your data in the list of recent breaches and let you know if you've been compromised. So if you were to go through that activity and find out that you have been part of one of those data breaches, the best thing to do is honestly just go change your passwords and set up 2FA. There are different ways to set up 2FA. For example, by default, BigCommerce requires users to set up 2FA with their email address. Other tools may have the option to send an SMS text message to your phone. The best way to do 2FA, though, is through an authenticator app. So I've got a few examples on the side here. There's Authy, Duo, and Google Authenticator app. Your email, the reason for this is just because your email can still be broken into, especially when a lot of us, I'm sure from time to time, are guilty of using the same password for multiple sites. And with SMS text message codes, there are rare cases where dedicated hackers have also been known to pull some crazy funny business and manage to temporarily steal your phone number in order to get access to your 2FA for there. But with an app, the code is really only available on your physical device. So unless somebody has that device in their hand, they're really not going to be able to steal the code, which means that your password and your tools that you're associating with this app just really have that extra layer of protection. BigCommerce has just introduced the option to set up 2FA with Authy. I definitely encourage everyone to look into it for their store, as well as any other tools that you might use. In order to do that for BigCommerce specifically, from your control center, you can easily just go to My Profile, Additional Authentication, and then in that section, you'll be able to find the ability to switch from email to Authy. So pretty easy, pretty quick, and it really just adds that extra layer of security. So let's talk about password security, because it's great that if you have two-factor authentication, but really your two-factor authentication is something that you just want as like that added layer of security. In a perfect world, your password would never actually be compromised. So one thing that is funny about modern passwords is that they are difficult for humans to remember and not that difficult for machines to crack. Like every site that you come across these days requires 8 characters, 1 number, 1 capital letter, 1 lowercase letter, a special character, your firstborn child. It's just too much. And it's exhausting trying to come up with all of these different combinations for the different sites that we all visit. So that obviously leads a lot of us to use the same password across sites, which just makes us more vulnerable and negates all of the security measures that these companies have tried to put in place. When we think about people hacking passwords, often what we're assuming they're doing is that they're guessing the password. And so that is why we have this notion that if we just have a really random combination of letters and numbers and characters, it will be more difficult to guess, but that isn't necessarily the case. you can think of passwords a lot like the code to a combination lock. Combination locks get infinitely more difficult to crack the longer the number is. So for a lock with 4 numbers, there are something like 10,000 possible combinations. But then as soon as you add one number and just have a combination of 5 numbers, there are suddenly close to 100,000 possible combinations. If a hacker is trying to guess a password, they're going to do that through scripts and programs, which means that a computer is going to basically do this for them and run through all the possible combinations quickly and efficiently. The best way to counteract this is use a longer password. The longer the password, the more combinations, the less likely you are to have it compromised. One of the easiest ways to lengthen your passwords is use a passphrase. Rather than using a word over and over again with the different combination of letters and numbers, passphrases are a lot easier to remember. So, you know, you could say, like, if you wanted a Facebook password for some reason, you could say like Facebook login for May 2020. That already has lots of characters that instantly makes it a little bit more difficult to guess or crack, even with the use of scripts and scraping. And it makes it easier for you yourself as a person to remember. But if you're anything like me, even if you do make these passwords easier to remember, you still have more sites that you have login information for than you can possibly count. So that still leaves you with the problem of trying to remember all of these passwords or passphrases, or even in some cases, just your username. So I don't know how many times I've tried to sign into one tool or another and been like, what email am I using for this? What was my username? So that can be tough as well. That's a whole other problem. That's where password managers come in. So there are lots of options. They all have their perks, and it's easy to find a free one. You shouldn't have to pay for a password manager unless you need something like some sort of enterprise tools. But if it's just for you yourself, they're easy to find for free. LastPass, 1Password, and Bitwarden are all great options. Or if you're somebody who lives and breathes in the Apple ecosystem, Keychain is a great default one to use and rely on. But basically, password managers will make it really easy for you to use longer passwords without having to worry about having to remember them for all the different sites that you use, which obviously makes it way faster and more efficient to use a different password on every single site that you're visiting. And any good password manager gives you the option to generate a secure password for you. So definitely recommend looking into a password manager if and when you have the time. So that brings us into our second option when it comes to data security, and that is simply just managing access. That comes in 2 parts. So the first part is really managing the users and the permissions that they have. So let's dig into user access. If you have a team of people, you obviously want to make sure that they have everything they need to do their job quickly and efficiently. But something a lot of businesses forget to do is audit the list of users on their store. You know, business goes by, like, we all have focus on our daily tasks. But at the end of the day, you know, people quit, agencies are brought on and phased out, and it's easy to forget who has access to what tools. Something we often hear in the data security world is that more often than not, targeted attacks, which we would assume come from hackers and just, you know, bad guys, often actually come from unhappy employees or past people who just have some sort of gripe with the business, and they find a way to get back at the business one way or another just because their access wasn't revoked quickly enough, which is extremely unfortunate and entirely preventable. So just making sure that you go through and verify who has access to your store on a regular basis, making sure that old team members don't necessarily have the access that they shouldn't, is essential to keeping your store secure. like I say on the slide here, every user is a possible security breach. So just make sure that only the essential people have access. As much as we want to believe the best in people, sometimes, it's better to balance that and make sure that, you can believe the best in them, but also only give them the ability to do what they need to do. And so that extends to current employees and team members. We all need certain tools and permissions to do our job, obviously. And most of us are careful when we're hiring, and we do our best to choose the right person for the job. But sometimes we forget that even the best, smartest people, even if we've made sure that they are super reputable, done our background checks, all of that stuff, we're all human and we all make mistakes. Sometimes that means just deleting a product or changing the wrong photo in the listing. That's fine. It happens. And it shouldn't be a big deal, but sometimes, we all have these special product photos that are stored in our store. And occasionally we don't necessarily have the original file that we got it from. We pay for these product photos, but then we move systems and things get lost, data goes missing. So just because we've lost that product photo doesn't mean that we have a replacement. So the best way to prevent little mistakes like that becoming bigger problems is really to make sure that you set the right access limits for your team so that they're able to do their job without risking making mistakes beyond the scope of their role. It's really just best for everyone when your user permissions match your team's job description. And the last thing you want really is that your staff is going to accidentally delete essential information, and then you have to be the person to clean up the mess. So as long as you're just limiting their ability to make those mistakes, you should be pretty good. So the next thing when it comes to managing access for your store is third-party apps. Third-party apps are honestly just additional surface area that's open for mistakes, attacks, errors, all of that stuff that we all dread. At Rewind, we've actually seen a number of cases where a bug is introduced into these apps and it has accidentally deleted like an entire product catalog. And suddenly people are left missing their whole spring catalog or fall catalog, and they had all of these plans or promotions ready to go, and suddenly their weeks of work is down the drain. One of the best parts of BigCommerce is that flexibility to connect to a variety of tools through their headless API. You're not just limited to the App Store specifically. So it's a great system, but it does come with risks. If you have external tools with separate login credentials, make sure they're secure. We just went over like password security and 2FA. Definitely you want to apply those same rules to every tool that has access to your store. And that's because every app that you connect has visibility into some part of your business. And the last thing you want is for your apps to turn against you. Just be very selective. And one of the best ways to do that is before you actually install the apps, read reviews. Before you install anything on your store, do your due diligence and make sure you know how good the app is and that you're able to see what problems people are having. Hunt down those 1-star reviews and see what the themes are when people are upset. It's great really just to do your research and know what you're getting into specifically, because, we all read the marketing material and we all talk to sales, and they're always selling the dream, and that's perfect. That's great. Every tool does something helpful. But what you don't want is to suddenly be stuck with a tool that's making mistakes. So once you've decided that an app is essential, just make sure you have the latest version installed. You really don't want for the app to suddenly have a bug that, once again, like I mentioned, deletes your whole product catalog and you're stuck cleaning up that mess. The vast majority of apps today that we use are connected through the App Store or, are hosted on the cloud. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that all of your tools will often have like outdated versions. One of the benefits of the cloud is that you have the ability to basically hand off updates to whoever you're purchasing the software from. If it's in the cloud, it should be updated. But just in case, it's always good to make sure that you are running the most updated version, especially if it is a custom connection, not through the BigCommerce App Store. And this brings me to my favorite security solution. I might be biased, but you know, automatic backups. So a lot of us don't think of backups as a security feature, but really, honestly, it is one of the best ones. It's a safe way to have an untouched history of your store. So you're free to update products, experiment with new messaging or images, work with your team without being afraid that you're going to make a mistake at any moment and flush all of that hard work down the drain. It solves, honestly, a lot of the problems that we face with the two other security measures, being passwords getting hacked, malicious employees breaking into your system and ruining things, third-party apps just going wrong. It really does protect from those worst case scenarios, and it's quite literally a backup plan. But in order for all of that to be the case, it's important to look for two things in a backup. They have to be automatic, because as people, we just can't keep up with the work that we're doing every day if we have to do it twice. Remembering to export a CSV every single day of your store just isn't sustainable. And also then you have to figure out where to store all of those version history. You have to have this whole system for naming and managing. It's exhausting, and it takes up too much mental capacity. We all have better things to think about than the last version of our store and when we last backed it up. So the other thing that you absolutely need to look for in a backup is that they're consistent. Daily is ideal. It's a nice way to make sure that from day to day, whatever changes are being made, you always have a record of that. But yeah, in a nutshell, manual backups just don't work in today's world. We've really outgrown that model, which is exciting on the one hand, because we're able to do so much more in a day. But on the other hand, it means that we have to have some alternative solution that is automatic. Tech has really enabled us as individuals and as businesses to move so quickly. But if you're backing things up manually, you will inevitably fall behind. So automatic backups, like I said, are literally your backup plan when any sort of failure happens. And if you have a really good backup solution, it can be used basically as a magic undo button. You just go back, find whatever version you have before some sort of disaster struck, and restore it. You can just, with a really good backup, you're able to do it and solve those problems in minutes. And time is money at the end of the day. So downtime costs money. The faster that you're able to recover from crashes or mistakes, the less money you're going to lose in the long run. So in case you're not entirely convinced that backups are essential for some reason, let's go through why we at Rewind are so passionate about them. So we often assume that because we're using cloud data, it is protected. And that's not entirely untrue, but it also is not the case for the majority of our tools. Tools like BigCommerce, QuickBooks Online, GitHub, and everything else, they do back up their platform. If a meteor hits the server, they have a major data breach or whatever happens, they have a plan of action. They do have a way to solve for those problems. But when it comes to just your store specifically, less so. BigCommerce can't really be on call for whenever something small goes wrong. So like I said, if somebody deletes a product or photos or a catalog or your order history, something like that, they can't necessarily take the time to go and help every business with a small mistake. And so that's not that they don't save your data. They do save your data, but they only save it in a format that works for them. In order for them to scale, they really need to have the ability to store your data alongside everyone else's, and that makes detailed restorations really difficult. Finding and recovering your data within their servers is a lot like looking for a needle in a whole field of haystacks. So the way that we like to think about it is this shared responsibility model. You don't own the software, you rent it, which means you don't have a physical copy of that data, which is a little bit tricky, right? Because you still rely on this information in order to do your job and run your business at the end of the day. But because of this rental type model, tools like BigCommerce expect you to be the one to take care of your data. If you're going to rent a car, you're still responsible for, making sure it has gas and making sure that you have a map to get to wherever you're going. They're just giving you the car to drive. So again, we call this the shared responsibility model, and it's honestly always present, but at the end of the day, the onus is on you, the user, the store owner, the merchant, to understand what data is at risk and understand how to protect it. Most companies will even have a section about this in their terms and conditions or terms of use somewhere. So it's really just important to know what exactly what is and isn't protected. So in a nutshell, the bad news is that disasters are inevitable. But the good news is there are tools like Rewind that are here to protect you and your business. We all know Gymshark. They're, one of Shopify's biggest success stories. And back in 2015, they faced everyone's worst business nightmare, and their store went down on Black Friday. 8 hours of the store being down resulted in close to $143,000 lost in revenue. That's just something that you can't plan for. You can't come back from. It was devastating. So they signed up for Rewind the next day. And ever since, they have had a literal backup plan for when something goes wrong. So from now, they're able to patch things up in minutes if it comes to that. So earlier I talked a little bit about how our mission is to protect all cloud data for small, medium, and large businesses. And the reason for that is because SaaS is simply a growing market. We're becoming more and more reliant on cloud-based services and applications. And as companies grow, they're adding more and more tools to their tech stack. Every person is reliant on some form of data that's probably in the cloud in order to get their job done. If that data gets lost, what happens? Businesses really can't afford to lose data when it also means losing productivity and time at best, or in the case of Gymshark, revenue at worst. So I've been talking all about how great I think Rewind is. So let's see it in action. So I'm going to show you guys how simple it is to do a quick restore with Rewind. So first, let's go through and make a mistake. So for example, let's say I accidentally delete one of my products here. We'll delete this magnet t-shirt. Really unfortunate. It's gone. Too bad. I could spend the time to actually go through and actually bring back all of the photos, the description, all of the nitty-gritty details that I put into it in the first place, or I can go to apps, find Rewind backups, and find the t-shirt that was just deleted. As you can see, it's been deleted. If I want to restore it, I'm able to go into here, select whichever version I would like to do, and make live again. I'm also able to compare, if this were live, I'm able to compare what specifically is different with the source code. So anything highlighted would be a difference. Obviously, when the whole product has been deleted, everything is different. But once you've decided which version you'd like to restore, simply click on restore to this version. It'll make sure you're sure. And then in just a few seconds, usually you're able to see it's back. So there it is. As you can see, it takes no time at all. So I could have spent the time going through and doing that manually, but honestly, that took no time at all. The other thing that Rewind does is we offer backups on a whim. So if you've just gone through like some major changes and you really want to make sure that everything's backed up, you can hit this backup now button and it will make sure that all of your changes are stored. And we can also do an advanced restore. So I talked a little bit about, how somebody accidentally lost an entire catalog of products. You're able to go through and just select all of the different items that you would like to restore, and it'll do that easy peasy. You just select the date range, the time, and hit restore items, and it's good to go. So that is our product in a nutshell. So second poll, are you guys interested in automatic backups for your store? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer this one. Give it a few more seconds. Awesome. So yeah, it looks like most of you are in fact interested, which is great to hear. Obviously, like I said, I'm a bit biased, but I big fan of automatic backups just because I do think that they really solve all of the problems that we are often concerned about when it comes to security, whether that's lost data, users being having unauthorized access, or just password hacks, whatever. We generally are able to solve for most of those problems with these backups, which is great. So I will dig into our pricing a little bit. One of the big concerns that a lot of people have when it comes to looking for a backup tool is that they're going to have to pay for storage when they can't control how much data they need to back up. Like generally, if you're looking for a backup, it's kind of an all or nothing solution or model. Because just backing up some of your data it's just not sustainable. So we base our pricing around the number of orders your store has every month. So no matter how big or small your business is, you always know that your data is protected without breaking the bank. We work really closely with our customers to make sure that their needs are met, and we really understand how they need their backups to work for their business. So as you can see, all plans are monthly, easy to cancel at any time, and every plan comes with a free trial, so you can back up your data and try things out for yourself before you commit to anything. Every plan comes with daily automatic backups, unlimited file storage. Like I said, we don't base it off of storage. 1 year version history for most of the higher plans. Most of our plans in total, you're able to run a backup anytime. So that was the backup now button that I showed in the top right corner of the vault. For most of our plans, we're also able to save and back up product changes instantly. So if you are editing like the description of your product, as soon as you hit save, perfect, that's backed up in real time, which is great, especially when you're updating a number of products all at once. You don't have to remember to go through and actually hit that backup now button or wait for your daily backup to run at midnight. And we always have the robust help center, email support. Our support team gets so much love in a lot of our reviews. They're great. And they're always willing to help out and find whatever answers you're looking for. And we also have the option for anyone that has more than one store. If you talk to our sales team, we're often able to bundle your stores so that rather than paying for 2 business plans, you're able to pay for just 1 plus plan or something like that. So yeah, that's about all I have on that. I'd love to hear if anyone had any questions. So one of the most common questions we often get is what does Rewind back up for BigCommerce specifically? If you need to back up something in particular, you can find the full list of things we back up in our help documents. But to list a few, we cover products, options, option sets, categories, orders, customers, price lists, blog posts, pages, brands, themes. Yeah, we cover a lot of stuff. So like I mentioned, if you have a specific thing that you are wondering if we back up, definitely dig into the support article and you'll be able to see all of the specifics on everything. But we cover pretty much anything you would need. Another common one we get is how long does the first backup take? The first backup is honestly always the longest, but it really depends on how many items you have in your store. So if you only have a few, it can be just a few minutes to back up your whole store, or depending on how many things you have, it can take up to a few hours. But like I said, the first backup is always the longest. So after that, backups are quick and easy because we only need to restore or back up the things that have changed in your store from day to day. Earlier, I mentioned that third-party apps can often lead to data leaks. One of the things that makes Rewind really secure is that all of the data stored in the Rewind vault is encrypted. We even make sure that your data is stored to comply with international privacy laws, including GDPR. So we take data security, obviously, very, very seriously. Awesome. Well, if there are no other questions, I'll leave it open for another minute or so, but thank you everyone for attending. I hope that you learned something here and there throughout the presentation. We're always open for questions. If you have any thoughts or would like to talk to our sales team or something, please just reach out to us, let us know. You can email sales@rewind.com and we'll get back to you pretty quick. All right. Hope everyone has a great day.